Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lander University Department of History and Philosophy podcast. Today we're going to be talking to some students from History 121 about what worked best for them in the last exam. So I've got Sid, Alex, and Emily here with me today. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hey. Well, okay, so we'll start with that first question. Emily, can you tell me, all three of you did well on the test. Can you tell me, what did you do to prepare for the test?
Well, first I kind of went in depth with notes during class, but then I also did all the study guides, and when I went back to study for the exam, I went through the questions, and the ones I struggled with, knowing right off the top of my head, I kind of made a little quiz for myself with those, if I didn't know that well.
Okay, excellent. And when you said you made a quiz, did you use Quizlet, or was this just on paper, or how did you do it?
I wrote down the questions I didn't know, went back to the PowerPoint, studied a little more, and then quizzed myself on those questions.
Okay, excellent. Alex, what would you say? What ended up working well for you?
I did something pretty similar to that, except obviously I looked through the reviews and the study guides and all that, but I'm a little more old school in that I kind of did flashcards about all the important people like Sargon, Hammurabi, all those people. But also with this test that I did a little differently is I also did flashcards about like events too, like what happened to the Hebrew kingdom, and then that would be like a whole flashcard on that. And then obviously I would read through them, and then probably about like maybe 3-4 days before the test, I would try to answer it before I turn it around, because that's a big thing. So it's kind of like testing yourself. Like Sargon, who was that? Then I would answer it in my head, turn around and see if it was correct. Okay, and so a lot of people, when they do flashcards, they don't do that. They just kind of read them. But my big thing is I make like a little test.
Oh, excellent. And I think it's interesting because that's how I studied for foreign language. Mm-hmm. Was that I would have it on one side, the word on one side in English and the word in Korean on the other side, and I would keep doing that. When I got one right, I put it to the side. When I get it wrong, I just do it, and I just shuffle them back together and do it again over and over and over again. Is that what you're kind of describing?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And did you find when did you make the note cards?
On like Monday, when the test was Friday, I believe. So on like Monday,
right.
I had most of them made at that point.
Okay, excellent. So by Monday, and then the test was it on a Friday?
I believe so.
Okay, excellent. So you were studying several days ahead. Mm-hmm. Okay, good deal. So that's a big thing that helps. I usually like to have people make them a little bit earlier as we go, but you gave yourself plenty of time. You did very well. So, I mean, and that's one thing to think about. If it works, it works. Mm-hmm. Just keep doing whatever works. Well, excellent. Okay, Sid, what can you say? How did you prepare?
So after I took notes during lecture, and then after that, after each class, I would go through the study guides and fill out the questions that I knew, and then if I didn't know one, I would come into office hours, and I talked with you, and you were able to give me a lot of good extra information. And then if I wanted to fill out my notes more, I went back through the PowerPoints to see if I could spark my memory about something that you'd said. Excellent.
And it's interesting, and I would highly welcome people, come talk to me in my office hours, talk to me before or after class. I highly encourage people to go to tutoring, in part because, I'm happy to talk to people, but that gives me, when people go to tutoring, then I can do other things to help students with that time, but also a Lander student gets paid. Right, if you've ever watched, what is it, the It's a Wonderful Life, right? Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings, right? Well, every time you go to tutoring, a Lander student gets paid. It's something to think about. But very good. So, can you tell me one thing? We'll start again with Sid. We'll just go back down. How did you spend the evening before the test?
I looked over my notes, I looked over the study guides, and then I made sure to get a good night's sleep, because I knew that if I was tired in the morning, since it's a 9 a.m., if I was tired, I wouldn't be able to focus as well.
Excellent. And Alex?
I had definitely the same thing with the sleep, and I kind of started from the beginning, like the first civilization thing, and I went through that with the flashcards and then the reviews, and just kind of basically did a whole restudy of the whole stuff that was going to be on the test.
Excellent. Just as a quick aside, last year when I did, how I had the 2 study guide assignments? So last year, one was actually just the study guide and one was only the flashcards. Like I made people make flashcards, and I didn't do that this year. I switched to instead having 2 study guide assignments and then have just people fill them out, because the flashcard collecting and like grading them was kind of difficult. Like it's a lot easier to make comments on Blackboard. And then I found a lot of people didn't actually do them, or they would just like tear sheets of paper in half and turn those in. I'm like, okay, you're clearly not going to actually use these. So I thought maybe it would be useful doing the other thing. But I'm glad to hear you thought to use flashcards, and I'll have to rethink that assignment. Maybe I should make people do the flashcards again. I just wanted to do that as an experiment. Right, Emily, how did you spend the evening beforehand?
I went through all three of the study guides, kind of one question by one, and the same thing, if I didn't get it off the top of my head, I wouldn't look at the answers first. I would try to get the answers by myself, and the ones I didn't know, I would write down again, go back through the PowerPoints, and kind of just the same thing I did the whole week.
Excellent, excellent. And sleep, how was it?
Oh yeah, I went to bed early.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I found it sounds like this is similar to what I did, was that I would also do the same thing, start studying a few days ahead of time, and then I found like I got really nervous the night before the test, and like the more I studied the night before the test, the more nervous I became. So I did most of my studying like 2 or 3 days before the test, and the night before the test I just did a quick review and then tried to go to bed early, and that seemed to work okay. I don't know if you had a similar experience with that, or...
I think that is helpful because you start psyching yourself out, and
Right.
you're like, the test is tomorrow. Well, if I don't get this now, I'll never get it, and like that. But if you're working on it a few days in advance, and then by the time you get to the day before the test, you don't realize you've gotten more of the information into your head than you think you have.
Right, right. And there's something about that. Like sometimes it's like, I don't know, sometimes I seem to learn in my sleep, if that makes sense. Like when I review, like it keeps going through. And I'm glad all three of you mentioned the study guides. And that's, I think a lot of people I noticed when I graded the tests, and this is one reason I don't like Scantron, because like I like to get a feel as I grade the test manually. I just put in like something to listen to on YouTube and then grade them manually. And people did really well in section 1 and 2. And section 3 and 4 they had a little more difficulty with. And I think that was one reason why, was they'd stopped doing the study guides because they weren't due. How do you get yourself to be disciplined to do that? Like I had some students said to me, why don't you make those due every week? And of course, one problem would just be, I mean, I spent whole weekends grading those. I can't continuously do that. It's just there to get people in the habit. That's one reason I just can't do it, because I have to be concerned with other aspects of my work. How did you though discipline yourselves to keep doing the study guides?
Well, I know if I didn't do them, I wouldn't do good on the test because I wouldn't remember what we talked about in class. But writing it down helps me remember almost anything.
Right.
And also, I tend to procrastinate a lot. So on the days I don't have class, I spend most of my day doing homework and trying to get everything I need to get done first before I go and do anything else.
Right. So that makes sense.
I thought that doing the study guides the first 2 times really helped me in understanding the material just overall, not
Right.
even just for the test, but just memorizing it and internalizing it. And so I just kept doing it because I liked learning it, and
Okay,
so
good.
it made it easier for me to just know.
Excellent. And that's what I was hoping, was people would get in the habit, they would see it was useful, and so they would naturally continue. Alex, how about
Yeah,
yourself?
and that was kind of the same thing for me, because with a flashcard, I can kind of only really get it down to a few sentences, unless I just had these whole paragraphs that I would do. But with the study guide, it would ask like a lot more in-depth questions. It was like, who is this person, how did he do this, and why did this happen? So if you could answer the ones on those, then it's a lot more level of, yeah, I definitely know this. So I like that about the study guides.
Well, excellent. And I guess, when did you fill them out, typically?
For me, I did right after class. I would do piece by piece. If we spent about 2 class periods on a PowerPoint, right after that, the next day I would go and fill it out, what I could, from where we got to in class.
Excellent.
That's what I would do too.
I would usually do it like right before we were about to get into a new unit. Like
Okay.
if we were toward the end of
Yeah.
Unit 3 and we're like, all right, we're going to do Unit 4 tomorrow, then I would start on that one.
Okay, excellent. And I think those are all good markers, and I think that was the other reason why I don't want to make the study guides always due, was that a large part of university is learning to be self-disciplined. And so part of it, for people who were like, oh, can you just make these due all the time, because then I'll do them if they're due. And it's like, well, I understand your concern, but this is the idea, is trying to learn that kind of self-discipline, and having a normal time that you always do them makes sense. It's like, oh, we just finished the section, time to do the study guide. Oh, class is over, sometime today I need to do a study guide. So, and I'm sorry, I just thought of a few things, so don't feel bad, because for our listeners, I told them initially what I was going to ask about, and then as they spoke, I thought of some other things that I want to ask about. So I have a lot of students that have like test anxiety, and they'll be like, I thought I knew the information, but then on the test I just blanked. Do you have any advice for what to do during a test?
This might be kind of funny to some people, but I chew gum when I study, so I chew the same gum when I'm taking the test. I feel like it helps me remember things, and it's like the same environment. So like, I don't know. And plus, like, chewing is like, it's a repetitive motion. So like your subconscious can be focusing on that while your brain is focusing on the test.
Right, excellent. Though I should point, and you didn't do this, so it's fine. But if you follow that, make sure you don't pop your gum during the test, because that will drive the other students nuts.
Yeah, don't do that. Please don't do that.
But chewing gum, I think, is fine. Right? Yeah, Alex.
I don't know. I've never really gotten nervous before tests. I'm not trying to like call out people, but usually my friends that I've had when they've said that, it's because they didn't actually know it as well as they thought. Like they would think they would know it pretty well, but it wasn't actually in depth enough to be able to do super well, if that makes sense. So I'm not 100% sure because I don't really get nervous when I take tests, but my thing is just to make sure if you do know it really well, then you shouldn't be nervous. But if that's still the case, I don't know. I've never really dealt with that.
Right. Well, and I find where when people they do talk about like drawing a blank, it's oftentimes they tried to cram and they didn't sleep enough.
Yeah.
And the thing I like about them, what's tricky is what I like about flashcards is you can really test yourself. You can think you know this stuff. You're like, yeah, this makes sense when you're just looking at it. But then when you test yourself, like, oh, I didn't actually know this as well as I thought. So that makes sense what you're saying. And Emily?
I'm not really sure. I just know I see like a lot of people get nervous during class when people start turning in the test and start walking out because you feel like time is running out. Because I feel that sometimes if I try to take longer, but taking longer actually helps for me because you have more time to understand, like read through the questions, make sure you get it right.
And one thing I should say as someone who is the one that grades the test, there's no connection. Sometimes I have people finish it early and they get an A. Sometimes they finish it early and they fail, right? Because there's different reasons. They just knew it so well so they got an A, or they just knew nothing and gave up. And then I've had students who take, usually I let students have the whole 2 hour. There's 2 hour blocks for finals, and I give students the whole 2 hours. I'm just like, whatever, just do it. I'll just grade or read a book while you're doing this. And I don't want them to feel nervous. Most people still get it done, but I had one, within an hour. But I had another guy take the whole 2 hours, and he got an A. He just was obsessed with getting these last couple of questions. And from my perspective, I was just kind of like, it's okay just to go ahead and turn it in because your grade is so high. Unless you just fail this test, you're going to get an A anyway, your final grade. You would maybe use this hour otherwise. But I didn't want to, pressure the students. So I just sat and waited and read my book because I graded all the tests while waiting for him. But excellent. That all makes sense. So one other question before I ask a kind of broader question. How do you reward yourselves when you either for studying or for doing well on the test? Do you do anything special to kind of encourage yourself?
I think for me it's just the satisfaction of doing well. I like, seeing the good grade and stuff, and so that's like enough for me.
Yeah, I would say the same.
Same thing for me, basically.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. You're all much better than me because I was just thinking like when I So I think, remember the other day I talked about sports in class. I was talking about how, the Olympics and how we transition the skills we get from sports into other fields. So one thing I do for fun with my kids is I play the game League of Legends with them, which is a team-based computer game where you play online against other people. And I like it because it teaches teamwork, it teaches how to be calm. You have to really think when you play the game. You have to work together. So I like those things. So my reward, after I've been working for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, I watch like a 5-minute video of like a pro explaining how to improve, because it has nothing to do with my work, right, in that sense. And it just gives me a way, just need to take a break. And that's kind of my reward. It's like, okay, you graded 50 exams, here's a 5-minute break. So that's just something to think about. But you're all very studious and doing a great job. So there's one other final question I kind of want to ask all of you. So, of course, you did well in the first exam. You're making that transition into college well. What advice can you give people for that transition? And I'll ask Alex first.
For me, I would just say it kind of clicked the second I got to college, but some people it's not as much. Make sure that college, there's a lot more reasons to take it seriously. And with high school, like I took it seriously enough to get like B's and stuff. But like with college, you have so many reasons that you need to take it seriously or you should take it seriously. And when you can kind of take something seriously, like a test or just a class or the whole experience as a whole, it makes it a little it makes it seem more like it's important to kind of get in the groove of things.
Excellent. When you say, and I like things, you're focusing on goals, right? It's not just, I just need, it's connecting what you're doing. So what when you say reasons to do well, like what do you mean? Like, because
in high school I heard a ton, people would say, oh, why do I need this class? I want to be an engineer. Why do I need to know about world religion? Stuff like that. Right. But with college, it's like you might still have the same idea, but generally most of the classes are going to be in your major. So it's like, well, you should care about this class because this is exactly what you're doing. Or if it's like, and if it's still outside of what, like your purview of what you're going to do, it's like, well, you still need to do well, or your GPA is going to go down. Right. And I hope that's what I try and do in this class is make it clear, even if you don't use this information, the skills that you develop from learning it will be helpful. But of course, I should point out, with the Egyptians, we know that engineering and religion are connected, right? So, especially that was kind of curious, especially when it comes to architecture. But okay, very good, very good. Emily, how about yourself? What kind of advice would you offer?
Make sure you're on top of what you need to do for each class, but also give yourself time to hang out with your friends. Don't always just worry about studying, because if you're just doing that, you kind of get bored easily and you tire yourself out. But if you go do something you want to do, it'll kind of help balance that out. Excellent.
Yeah, it's good to have that. Like everyone has a different work life, but I remember when I was in college, on Fridays I took Friday evening off and hung around with my friends, and it was something for us to look forward to. And then usually all of us, we would work until Saturday evening, either at an off-campus job or we would be studying, and then we would have fun on Saturday evening, and then sleep in, as much as possible on Saturday and Sunday, and then get our rest and keep working, and we have that kind of balance. But we worked during the week, and then we relaxed and caught up on the weekend. Some people I know party every day. It's like, no, you can't do that. Right? If you want to stay. Sid, how about yourself?
I agree. I think that the balance is really important. When you are only studying all the time, you have trouble focusing on it because you feel like you're just seeing the same stuff over and over again.
Right.
But if you take breaks and you like you're studying and then you have to go to like a club meeting, like getting involved in something on campus, or just doing something with your friends, like even just leaving to go eat at the dining hall, like taking those breaks is really important so that your brain can process what you've been learning, and then you can just relax.
Excellent. And what was the most recent club meeting that you went to, Sid?
Oh, it was for History Club.
Yay.
I'm in History Club, and it's super fun, and people should check it out. We went to the historic site at 96, which is just outside of Greenwood, and we went and visited Star Fort. It's pretty cool, and we walked. It was just like a little walking trip, and we talked about the history of the fort, and we had a lot of fun.
Well, excellent. So before we wind up, it appears some people have come to do some work outside, so it's probably a good time to stop. So any final thoughts, or?
Just do your best if you can.
Excellent.
Exactly. I think doing your best is really important. Like, don't compare yourself. Compare yourself to yourself. Like, don't compare yourself to other people, because only you know how to work, how you yourself can work.
Very good point.
Also, I would say don't try to give yourself this self-fulfilling prophecy that you're dumb or that someone's smart so you can't do as well as them, because in my kind of friend group, I was never really the smart one. It was just a matter of if I took it seriously. So the only difference between doing well on something and doing bad is just the amount of time you spend. It's not something you're born with. It's like, oh, he's smart, so of course he can do it.
Right. Very good point. I would argue that the smart people, I did the air quotes thing for the audience, often have the hardest time transitioning into college because things were so easy and they didn't have to work, and eventually you hit a ceiling where you have to work. I had that happen to a friend of mine when I was an undergraduate. He kept changing majors because he was fine until he got to 300 level, and then he was expected to study. So he started off, I think, math, then CIS, then philosophy, and then he finally graduated, but it took him 6 years because he kept changing majors because he refused to study. I mean, philosophy's hard. I don't want to take away from that, but he was able to get by just writing decent papers, which he was good at. Just kind of, I don't know, blowing smoke. But he did eventually graduate. Well, good deal. Well, thank you very much, all of you, Emily, Alex, and Sid, for joining us today, and I hope our listeners got something useful out of this.